So, I mean, let's go straight into it. So we should have an image coming up on your screen in just a few moments, which is to do with new characters and their quest completion sequences. Joel, if you're able to quickly sum this up.
Yeah, so I wanted to show a few of the kind of bits of visualizations and things that we work with. So, for instance, this is looking at new characters. This is analysing the kind of path that people go through in their early gameplay experience. It is not. So what Mob Connor is alluding to there is the analyst's least favourite chart of all is a pie chart. This is not a pie chart. But yeah, so the point with this is I just wanted to show a few different flavours of the kinds of visualisations, the ways that we look at our data.
I can't even begin to analyse that.
Well, that's the people who complete the first quest, and then the second
and then
one,
the pathing system.
Yeah, all right. Fancy pants.
So you can kind of home in on some of the different paths, what's popular, what's not popular, see where things are broken. If we move on to the next one, though, I think you've got another different kind of look.
We have a lot of images to show you, ladies and gentlemen, and a couple of other awesome videos as well. So we have the second one here, and you want to take us through this one as well.
Yeah. So again, I mean, these are all kind of fairly detailed charts. And it's not really to show you anything detailed about the data itself. It's just to get a feel for. So this is something that one of our data scientists did. So a lot of the work is very in depth. So this is a statistical analysis of correlation and principal component analysis. So it's a whole lot of work.
What?
Our role within that is to not offer people like Mod Connor those kind of statements, but to give them a feel for, is that working? Do players like it? Should we do more of it?
Okay, so if I'm looking at this right now and I can see it skewing upwards, is this like a positive skew, or like what's it trying to say?
There's a positive correlation between the two factors that we're looking at. As I say, it's just to give a flavour of some of the nuts and bolts of what goes on in the team.
And it's fair to say we used the hell out of this sort of stuff, isn't it?
But the reason I was late coming to this room is because I was building graphs based on the data that they were sending up.
Oh, it makes our job sound fantastic. But I mean, like Beneath Cursed Tides, you guys told us that lots of members were playing, but not free players. Weird, even though it was free player quest. So we changed some things about advertising it and how we're advertising. Every single project has this kind of example of something we've adapted thanks to the information we get from them.
I mean, it works both kind of before and after we release things. So we might look at, for instance, drop-offs in engagement where players have stopped playing a bit of content. Are you looking at, well, maybe they've just got all the rewards and actually there's nothing beyond the rewards that's compelling, whereas other bits of content, there's replay value over and above that. When would you want to release something? Like, what's the point where there's a kind of gap in what people are playing? So it works both before quests, before content's released and after.
Mostly we see it as witchcraft. I mean, it's just...
it looks quite insane.
One of the benefits, I think, is that I think with RuneScape, we're really lucky to have this kind of really diverse communities of people, some of whom are really vocal, some are no doubt in Twitch chat right now, some are on the forums.
You've opened the floodgates now, I assure you.
But you can't rely on, not everyone chooses to speak up. Some people just play in their own way, and we're keen to make sure that we represent those players' needs as well. So it's a good, clean way of getting a look at what's going on, regardless of how vocal people are.
So we have a third image coming up right now, and I'm going to warn you in advance. There's a lot of colours in this one, and there's a lot of direct... I have no idea what this is, so Joel, you're going to have to do a great job of explaining this one, but if we're able to pop that up right now, are you able to kind of summarise what this is?
Yeah, OK, I mean, it's called a Sankey diagram.
Sorry, what?
It's called a Sankey diagram.
Sankey.
Yep. So this is really just looking at player behaviour over a kind of window of time. Again, I'm not going to get too much into the detail, but what it tells us really is that you've got this flow of kind of people engaging, playing RuneScape, ducking out, coming back in. There's a core of players who will stay with RuneScape forever, but we've got a huge number of players who come in and out at different points. So it's what this was doing was looking at that kind of pattern. Just an illustration.
Awesome. So let's get ready to go into... We have some player demographics to go into. Now, obviously, last week we released Skill and Pets. They came into the game. We released Day 1 and Day 2 stats of them, and it's been a while since we've released any more stats since then. But just to bring you all up to speed, we also released a hotfix on Friday, which we communicated and told you that we were changing a couple of things as well. But here are the 1 week stats coming up now on your screen.
Fishing caning it.
That's
what I imagine.
The Skill and Pets that have been earned in the game. So they should be up on your screen right now.
There it is.
And you can see, obviously, fishing is kind of dominating in its Skill and Pets, but, that's just because people like to either use the beach or they... In fact, there was someone who got a fishing pet with 606 fishing XP yesterday. which was kind of insane. But
So how did you find out that, Shawnee?
it was on Reddit, ironically, of course. You know, Reddit's my home in that sense.
So
but,
it's construction.
yeah, and
Only 12.
so it's kind of changed for a bit. So just to bring it up to speed, last week construction was on 5, and now it's kind of gone up a little bit. There was a bit of a change to the production skills, and the beautiful thing about obviously tying this in analytics is that, of course, these guys know, and then they can show us, well, how much has it changed since these changes.
You might see something like, there's far too few on a given skill, so then you're just prompted to do something about it.
Exactly. So we now, I think, if we're okay to get ready to show our first video, and this is really cool. So for any of you who know what a heat map is, you're going to get a very fancy one, and this one comprises of the Wilderness update we did in early August. So if you remember, we added a lot to the Wilderness, and what this heat map is going to show you, and we'll talk about this as it's playing, is the player activity going into that area when that update's going in. So hopefully we can bring that up on the stream right now. Oh, look at that. So, actually, apologies. That's the heat map of players' location.
Yeah, so this is just the real world source kind of login from people over a 24-hour period.
Is that a little twinkle on Madagascar?
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
Yes, it
hello.
is.
It's a countdown timer. It's okay. We're still live. Don't worry about that. We'll fix it in just a moment. There you go. We're good. But yeah, that was essentially just. Sorry to jump over you there, Joel. But yeah, that was just to confuse myself. But yeah, that was essentially a rundown of the players. And then obviously there was a big light in America. You know, there's a fair bit in America. But I mean, how does something like this help you when it comes to, let's say, game updates or anything that we release every week?
So there are a number. It's probably not the most rock and roll one to talk about. There are a lot of things underneath the bonnet in terms of technical planning. So making sure server availability. I'm sure our players in Australia will know that there's been lots of work. It's always a challenging thing to make sure we can get the best possible performance for players in Australia. So something like that. So for instance, there's a filtered version of that looks at players logging into the Australian servers, but where they're logging in from. Trying to manage kind of availability and resources over the course of a 24-hour period. Obviously, you've got things like game updates where there's sudden massive hammering of kind of login servers. There's, like I say, it's not necessarily the most rock and roll thing, but it's really useful under the bonnet for our technical teams. So
we also have an image which literally shows the region breakdown for our active players who are playing RuneScape, which we'll be able to get up on screen right now. But there you can see it, obviously, North America with 56%, Europe 31%, Asia 2%, Africa 1%, Australasia 7%, and South America 3%. I mean, pretty much sums it down. Sorry?
None in Antarctica?
None in Antarctica, I guess. I don't
think
know.
the IPs are just broken when they're obviously using some sort of a proxy.
But I believe we did show one of these before last year, I think, when we did a data stream. I mean, has anything changed? Has there been any unusual trends or spikes recently as a result of this or anything like that at all?
No.
None? That's fine.
That is the interesting part when we start talking to analytics. The number of times that we go down and ask, so what kind of an impact do you think this change is going to make? And their response is, none. No impact whatsoever.
Can I just put my hand up and say what you mean by that is obviously onto the players in regions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the global. So a lot of what happens is you'll see a change will impact like a small number of people, but the actual impact it'll have globally across our total player base is almost zero. Mm-hmm. It's frustrating at best.
And now I believe, this is where it gets really, really fun. So we have, I don't know how to best describe this, but it's basically a summary of RuneScape accounts by their creation year as well as their total skill level. And it's a really, really cool little chart. Check this out. We should have it up on your screen right now. So for me, I'm in 2011 and 2,400 more. So I'm up there a little bit, but I mean, it's pretty awesome to see it. But I mean, for you, Joel, I mean, how useful is this in that sense, and seeing just like veteran players and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's interesting here is you'll see there's still a flurry of recent accounts. You can see where RuneScape kind of boomed, and we've got this massive solid base. Our average kind of play, half our players have played for about 8 years. So it's pretty colossal. But then you've got players like me, so I'm in the 2,400 bracket, but 2013. So I hadn't heard of RuneScape until relatively recently. But yeah, so you can kind of still see that there's a healthy spread of communities across all kinds of ranges.
What I like looking at things like this for is the time it takes somebody to move through the level bandings. So you'll see you get a progress from the bottom left to the top right hand corner as you get older. And what we've got in the older accounts is this massive compression of everybody moving into those top levels. And then along the middle, where we did have those slightly more fallow periods of number of new accounts coming in and sticking with the game. What we've got now is a lot more people are coming back in, a lot more people are playing, and a lot more new accounts are coming back as well. So it's been really good to see over the past couple of years those things building back up again.
So I imagine, like, when you look at this as well, like if we are trying to target players who've kind of lapsed a little bit, like it's very useful to see stuff like this, and we can go, target a set range and go, hey, we've kind of got this, and I imagine that's very useful. So when we brought up the Arc, maybe we target some players who are, here I am applying Mactin, but targeting players who have those requirements and stuff like that.
It also suggests how old those accounts would be. So this is the people who are actively playing.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I mean, so one of the things it's useful for illustrating is that there's not one single community of RuneScape players. So there's this idea that everyone, it's efficiency scape and everyone's kind of focused on getting to max level. But there are plenty of people who are quite happy doing what they do in a sandbox environment. It's not, that's not their goal. So it's quite useful to show that that's a healthy, vibrant community, that there are people who keep playing. And it's making sure that their voice is just as valid as everyone else's, really.
All right, so in between these sections we have a couple of random questions that we've gathered, and hopefully will be some really cool answers coming out of it. So how many players have maxed, and how long does it take to max?
So how many players? 9,000. In terms of how long does it take? So there is one player. I mean, we're rather than kind of look at the mathematical possibilities, there's the kind of looking at the data and what players have done. So in terms of 2,715, as in including
the total for the match, yeah.
The quickest is 1,139 hours of playtime, so that's 47 days. But yeah, the average played on an account that's maxed is 509 days. Obviously, that doesn't mean it's taken them that long to max.
Yeah, of course.
Things like Invention and Divination having a gap where people will have been playing before that point. But yeah, that's the average. Max time played on a max level account is 2,252 days. So that's pretty impressive. 54,000 hours.
Wow. Okay.
We've got a committed bunch.
Wow. Okay, so how many players have the Master Quest Cape, Completionist Cape, and Trimmed Completionist Cape?
I love these numbers because a lot of what we hear when we it'll be good when they come out and we'll let people guess while they're waiting. But it always feels like there's so many people who are like, oh, I've got my Master Quest.
Say everybody's got a max cape. Everybody's got a comp cape.
Yeah, everybody's got. Oh, geez, we've all got a trimmed comp cape. Like all of us, every single one of us. And when you actually look at the numbers, it's good. Wait. I won't do a straw poll. Do we have any guesses?
What's this? Sorry, do you want so I've got an answer in terms of as a percentage of our active players, for instance.
Sorry, what's the question?
So this is what percentage of our active players have a
comp cape or match.
Which do you want to go with?
Comp.
Okay.
Not trimmed, not Master Quest, comp.
But we do have percentages from active players, I believe, in the last month. So.
What are the options?
It's
0 to 10 and then 10 to 20, 20 to 30.
I want to keep the momentum going. I want to keep the data going. We need to keep it going. I'm sorry. I think stuff like this is really
We've
cool.
got 0.1%, 2%, 5%,
we'll keep going.
4%, 1%.
Tell us, Joe.
So if we're interested in Master Quest, it's 0.27%. Comp Cape is 1.81%. And Trimmed Comp is 0.19%.
And this is all active players in the last month.
Yeah, I mean, what you see is, understandably, that players who've achieved that kind of level of completion tend to be disproportionately represented. Once people have got their cape, they tend to keep going with the additional requirements. We're basing those numbers on people who have worn one, so it doesn't mean that they kind of aren't wearing. That they're wearing it right now, but yeah, we tend to see that.
So this is basically anyone who has the requirement. Now, it doesn't matter wearing them, just as long as they meet that requirement, then that's when they're included.
More or less,
Could have worn it at any point in the past.
All right, so next one. This was where Oswald might catch me out on pronunciation here, but we'll see. How many players own pieces of the Kepsi outfit?
Oh, I got it right. That's really annoying. It's a silent Kef.
We'll just skip that.
You don't pronounce the Q.
So in terms of all 5 pieces...
Let's go 1 to 5.
Okay, 1 to 5. You count down, you did
one
drum
piece.
roll. One piece. 1,093 players.
2.
62. 63 players.
63.
Yeah.
3.
12.
4.
3 players.
All 5 pieces.
5 players.
So
5 guys.
5 guys.
So 5 people
I'm
have.
hungry.
So there are more. So there are more.
We may have set that one up.
Yeah, I think that was.
We did
Well,
not.
no one told me.
We're just that quick.
So obviously it is surprising to see that more players have 5 pieces than 4 pieces, of course. But I mean, this is.
Well, if you get that close,
Yeah.
I think then it's becomes an obsession.
Yep. Okay, now we have this is a pretty cool one, I think. So, what stats do the average paying member have? We also have an image to accompany this as well, so we should bring that up. But I mean, Joel, you can
Do
talk
I
us
beat
through
the
this.
average paying
This
member?
is the average
I
guy.
do.
This is the average player.
Yeah, as I say,
Average of one
To
in
be fair,
invention.
the average. Come on.
So when we say average, I mean, as I say, this tends to be something that, I mean, this is why we've got a team
Median.
This is why we've got a team of data staff, because it tends to be a less useful thing to talk about. I know it's of interest to people, but what we tend to see is you get a kind of clustering of players at different types, depending on their kind of appetite for play, how long they've been playing, what they're interested in. But yeah, generally, like the midpoint would be between 60 to 80 stats. There are a few exceptions. I mean, you can see on average, invention is one, and we saw that for a long time with divination. It took a while for that to obviously reach that point where so many people have tried it that they've got up to what is now average level of about 55.
I'm surprised it's the lowest, actually. I would have put farming lower.
Yeah, but you've got so little time for people to have gotten to
Yeah.
This is based on the.
Is it active for a month, or
It's.
or is this historically?
Well, this is going to be over the last month.
Okay, okay.
I mean, if you took it back, obviously you'd get weighed down by the people who haven't even seen Invention because they've not
Yeah.
come back yet.
Okay.
But yeah, average 185 quest points as well.
That's
I mean, that was
pretty
the
good.
thing that was interesting for me with the
Thought that'd be
Master
lower.
Quest cape.
Yeah.
Is it's rarer than the comp cape.
Oh, well done, Questers.
It's so. I listened to a great thing about averages this morning, accidentally, with nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
Go on.
So average body sizes
Yep.
were originally used for planes, and they had problems when they went to jet fighters. And it's because they couldn't adjust anything in the cockpit. And then they tested all of their pilots, and out of 4,000 pilots that were tested, guess how many met the average size of a pilot?
None.
Yeah,
None
not
of
a
them.
single one.
There we go.
Random stats. That's why you come here.
I think that'll be.
Sean is going to actually throw his iPad at my head.
Threw his iPad down.
I think that'll be our intermission period over. So we also have one more random question, then we'll get into map-related activity. But what's the distribution of active members' skill total and the bands of combat? So, like for example, 130 to 138, etc.
Well, I hope we have an image for this as well.
Yeah, we do. Don't worry. But that image I'll explain it.
Yeah, so I mean, you can see obviously you get a number of people who'll be almost like kind of just alts that aren't really played that much. So you get the influx of kind of new players and people right at the top there who stuck at the lowest levels. But yeah, you can see how quickly it rises, and then you start to see it slow down. The biggest one obviously is combat, because it's so useful as an unlock for all sorts of other things. Even if you may not be, combat may not be really the reason you play RuneScape, but there'll be a barrier beyond which it's difficult to play quests. So you see a huge number of people who have reached max combat level, even though the overall skill distribution is a lot more varied.
There's not a 140 combat confirmed, just to clarify for the people in the chat there. It's just the bands themselves. Obviously, they go up to 138.
Exactly, that's next year.
Yeah, just... what are you...
Should have labelled it 131 to 199, shouldn't I?
Yeah. So, one of the things I always find interesting on this is the XP requirement on the top end bandings for the skill totals means that you actually get a significant breakdown. Like, you compress them into the top because there are so many XP levels that put you into that space.
Yeah. And you can see that wedge at the very end, which is more about the fact that Invention is a recent release. Yeah.
Right, so I kind of mentioned this earlier, and I've got my my format mixed up. We'll come up to map player activity now. Obviously, before we show this video, are you able to kind of summarise how it's useful for us as well as you to have like these kind of heat maps in these areas and stuff?
It's just so pretty, really.
It's kind of hypnotising in a way.
Yeah.
So basically, to summarise what we're about to show you is, I believe it was on the 8th of August we released the Wilderness task set into the game. Also introduced a lot of additions to the wilderness. Obviously, as a result of this, it increased the player activity in the wilderness. So we should have a video coming up on your screen right now, hopefully, which will essentially document it from midnight of that day to the midnight the next day of that update. And hopefully that video will be coming up right now. So, I mean, Joel, I'll leave it to you to try and talk us through this.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing that's interesting over time is you see war bands, you see these pockets of people, you can see the different parts that are being...
Here it comes, a war band. There's a war band.
So it's just quite cool seeing it light up. And you see, I mean, if you kind of replay it slowly and you kind of cut backwards and forwards, you get things like there's a different pattern at the start of a war band relative to the end. If you do it on different days, you start to see kind of different strategies emerging. You've got things like, I mean, you see it not only pulls people up from below the wilderness, but you get people who are kind of doing all sorts, like up at the agility course in the northwest there, who suddenly realise that Warband is kicking off and
there's a really amazing shot in this video. It'll show up for a split second where the map is completely empty because the game update has just gone live, and then you will see the map literally fill up. Here we go. So the update, I believe, I can't see the timer unfortunately because we haven't monitors in the way, but I think that was a Warband, yeah.
10 a.m.
Okay, so here we go. The update's going to come in just a few. Here we go, and that's when the update's in, and you can see immediately.
This was exactly the wrong time to play the update. This is when you got decimated.
Oh, we should have checked how many people died.
We should have.
Next time.
Begs the question.
But I mean, you
can see the difference in activity. I mean, obviously it's day one. All updates have this massive hype of interest.
And suddenly you're seeing Colony, you're seeing
a lot of focus in the middle.
Yeah,
obviously Divination Colony, and it's really really awesome to see. And someone said little ants, in a way, I guess. I mean, if you look at it that way. But
warbands.
Yeah, there we go.
You can see when we personally use this to know when to go into the wilderness after the update to actually see past that. Oh, we wouldn't do that.
But I mean, I imagine when it comes to like seeing the to get an idea of an update, like being able to see the activity like this is obviously very very useful. So immediately you can tell the wilderness was.
Yeah, well, obviously there's a lot that you can get quality wise in terms of just knowing what, like how many people are engaging, what they're doing, how many deaths is something that we look at, for instance.
I'd love to see Terrorbird racing. I don't know if we've got that yet.
That'd be amazing.
But it does. I mean, it just gives you a bit of added colour, something that's quite difficult to work out if there are channels, bits of the map that are underutilised. So one of the things actually that I know there's another map you want to cut to.
I keep seeing a dot in the top right corner in the lava map just running around in circles. So I think he's trying to it's the one person just zooming around there. But the other map we have, I think, is the surface world itself, like the entire world itself.
So one of the things that's useful for instance, was this was going back last year. One of the devs wanted to know if there was a relatively underused part of the map that he could sort of squeeze a bit of content in, basically. I'm afraid I can't remember what the bit of content was, but it's that kind of thing where you start to get a feel for neglected areas, for instance, that kind of stuff.
Are we able to get up the service world map?
I'm sure you can probably predict where a lot of players are.
And so I want to put this to the chat, so I want them to try and see what they think is a popular area and why, etc. Also, we should note, I believe, dungeons, instances, and stuff like that, and including on this because this is
just
world.
what you would see on the normal map.
Here we go. So this is obviously the service world itself, and this is all the players. Now, obviously, this is the same date as the wilderness update, so it starts from midnight, and then when we get to the update, you will see the drastic difference. But I mean, try and pick out little patterns along the way, and it's really is fascinating to see. And you can see the chat already getting stuck in.
See, Warband just started there.
Yeah, I mean, you can see obviously the huge kind of white clusters around Prifddinas, and kind of around White Wolf Mountain, around the GE. So a lot of kind of expected areas. But you always see, I mean, again, it's probably, you might need to zoom into it to even see some of the detail. But you can see things like Baba Yaga's house, so Lunar Isle.
You can pick out a lot of div colonies, can't you? I'm just looking at kind of Uglog and for Poison Waste.
And I believe we're coming up to the update time shortly. But I mean, obviously, like with today's update, we can imagine that this would be the same, but in Kebab and White Wolf Mountain, because obviously the rework is in, and obviously that'd be very populated with players checking it out. But there we go. This is where I think a Warband is going in, and then we're coming up to it now.
Well, that was the big thing. When we looked
now-ish. There it is.
And there we go.
And then Wilderness.
It's just, it's fascinating.
Yeah,
Absolutely
actually, one of the
love
things I've not looked at yet is where that hoovered people up from.
So the first time you guys sent this round, I actually had a good look around the map to see what had happened. Activity remained fairly constant. There was some pulled from Prif, but there's so many people there you barely notice.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think what actually happened is a lot of people came on as the update happened.
Sure. Yeah.
And it drove.
Yeah, they
activity
were
across
already
the
there
world.
prior to midnight, and then they just logged in, and then they're there. Obviously, I
All
think
those people at Edgeville just kind of tentatively going, I might go in, I might go in.
No, they went in, they're dead.
I mean, it's safe to say that. I mean, if you look at the top end of the map, it's very filled up, and obviously that's the wilderness area. But like for example, the desert has had a couple people there, but it's kind of faded away a little bit as a result of it. And
This is
obviously-
something that we're aware of.
There you go.
Hey, it's
Come
meant
on,
to be a
guys, go to the
desert, right?
iceberg.
No, there's nothing would possibly the desert being empty. And
We've got so many places that we can do travel people. The desert, Acheron, there's nobody in the water, underwater cities, it's exciting times.
All right, so we'll honestly, I think that's absolutely awesome, and it's just so cool to see it being played on the way. But we'll go with some more random questions we have here. Can we have some chat data? Are you able to summarise how many messages are sent, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of chat data that we look at. A lot of it is under the bonnet stuff that we wouldn't share. But I can give just some colour in terms of the sheer volume of data that we've got. So if we look at last year as the whole year, so on average, and I'm referencing the data here because, funny enough, I don't remember this off the top of my head.
I wonder why.
So, yeah, throughout 2015, we had an average each week of 81 million spoken lines of chat.
Per week.
That's per week, yeah.
Wow.
So 11.5 million a day.
They say people don't talk anymore.
Yeah. So overall for the year, that was over 4 billion lines. A lot of talk. So
Chat has increased recently in the past couple of weeks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, skilling pets.
Complaining about
Well,
not
that's-
getting their skilling pets? It's going to be one of the two, isn't it? I've got a skilling pet, or I haven't.
I guess. Yeah.
I still haven't got one. Sorry, I'm just bitter.
Okay, so what's the most common first letter or character of a person's display name?
I think we might even have a graphic for this.
Yeah, I think we have a graphic to
First
reference this.
character, not hugely surprising. It's S. There is one oddity halfway down. So if you've got,
What do you mean not surprising?
well, not surprising if you're a data geek
So-
who works with. That. The one curiosity there is Q, for instance, which I'd have thought there'd be a lot of QQing players with that as part of their name. Okay, come on, I'm just saying. But it's not only the least common letter, but it's less common than the number 1 as a first character.
Of course you have one. That's how you get into the top of the alphabetical ordering.
Oh, God damn.
I was not prepared for this stream. I clearly was
one
not.
is above 0.
Well, they're doing it wrong.
But
We're getting all the QQs in the
No
chat.
one likes 8. No one likes 8. Great bait mate.
Oh, jeez, come on,
Just
the show on.
right, okay. So we have.
I'm going to stop feeding the chat.
So we have this question.
Sorry.
This one's really, really cool. So obviously, a lot of people aim for Elf City as like the higher end content. They want to get to that.
That's because it's an
that hub.
amazing place to be and really well designed.
They want to
You
get
know
to
that
that.
guy, don't you?
Yeah, I do know that guy.
yeah.
Oh, that guy.
They want to get to the hub. But I mean, what proportion of players can access Plague's End, which is of course the final requirement to get into Elf City? I mean, we have a really awesome graphic to go with this, but
Yeah,
sorry, go
I
ahead.
mean, there was a lot of discussion around this before Prifddinas launched. So it was quite deliberately, Dave, if I'm right, it was quite deliberately pitched as aspirational content.
We wanted it to be exclusive. I mean, that's why the Next
Yeah.
Guild is there, for example.
Yeah.
It's that sense of exclusivity.
But at the same time, you wanted that aspirational goal to be really achievable.
Yeah.
So the thing that was really gratifying for us is that it is now just over 50% of our active players that can access
it got there this year.
the quest, and through the quest can access Prifddinas itself. So the labelling, it might be difficult to see the exact point. I mean, you've got effectively that second point along. So on the very left, you've got this point where kind of about 20% of people would be eligible. Obviously, the quest's not out at that point, but double XP weekend, you get this kind of curve upwards as people's levels accelerate. Then you've got the Part 1 launch, and you start to see people really. There's an actual reason for them to make that push. But you see it just keeps going up.
It's a big bump, after Part 2. It's just so that obviously that attracted as well.
Yeah,
That's good.
and I don't imagine it'll go up massively from the point it's at now. You can see, obviously, since the last couple of double XP weekends, it's relatively stable because you've still got this throughput of kind of new players and people whose playstyle means that that isn't their aspiration. But for me, it's a really healthy sign that we have that high level of high proportion of players who are doing that. It's great.
Awesome. What combat modes and interfaces do our players use?
Okay, so do we still use the term NIS, the new interface system?
Only in-house.
In-house, but I mean,
Okay.
people...
So
know
the modern interface, that's used by 81% of active members. Legacy was hugely popular when it came out, but people have kind of settled. I think the benefit that Legacy had for me was giving room to explore, to test it out without feeling like you had to stick with one or other. But it's still used by 19%, and those 19% are pretty committed to it, I think, now. In terms of combat mode, so Revolution is far and away the most popular, so that's 69%. Full manual has 19. Legacy mode itself has 12, so you can see that split where people want to take advantage
What
of
was
combat.
Momentum?
So I was going to say, I was about to add on to that. 'Cause obviously we just
Two
removed it.
guys.
Yeah,
Two guys.
It was in.
One of them was in-house.
One is an audio, isn't
It
it?
was, it was certainly in the single-digit percentages and falling. It was low.
Are you able to, do you have an idea of what they moved on to from Momentum? I mean, I know it's not really covered, but
I think disproportionately the people who were on Momentum moved on to Revolution.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's the closest fit.
There was a point in time when it was 30-30-30. Like that was a big thing for us in trying to make sure we were supporting everything. You know, it was full manual was 30 and Rev was 30, and nobody paid any attention to Momentum, and the other was Legacy.
But that's the benefit of firstly RuneScape having so many people in terms of devs who are part of the community and constantly playing it, listening to our audience. It was the right thing to do to have it at the time. It became probably the wrong thing because it's less helpful, particularly for new players who come in. So I think it was the right thing to do to then phase it out.
Yeah.
All right, and one more question before we go into the economy side of things, which should be interesting. How many combat level 3s have 99 Slayer or more?
So we've got 184 at the point we checked. So 184 people who've got combat level 3 and 99 plus. Of that 184, 11 of them have reached virtual level 120, and 5 of them have maxed out at 200 million experience while still being combat level 3.
So many references to Five Guys.
That's really impressive.
I think in the stream you can capture the moments where I'm just like thinking about these references and everything else that's coming in. You can probably just loop it together in one video.
Don't.
What as Shawnee realises.
Reaction.
Yeah, that's it. Afterwards, he goes, "Oh, that joke."
So, RuneScape economy is, we know the economy is a big driving factor of the game. These images I do not understand for the life of me.
These are the best graphs ever.
Okay,
We do like
you're gonna have to explain why this is. Are we able to show the first image, please? And take us through this. This is going to be unbelievable.
We should say, so in terms of the culture of analytics, we have a lot of colleagues around the industry who we're very close with. So I mean, the credit for this really, in terms of its origins, goes to the guys at Eve, so CCP Online. But so Mod Porky, in fact, took this and ran with it. So he delved quite deeply into the RuneScape economy. So it's quite a complex beast. There are lots of different bits of data you can draw from it. You could make a stream all to itself. But there are a couple of things that are of kind of key interest here. So one is that just those 2 lines that you can see at the very top. So I don't know if people are familiar with the idea of a consumer price index. This is the idea that you get kind of a bucket of goods that represent the things that are most useful in daily life. They're your kind of core essentials, your bread and milk. And you look at kind of how those change. So for RuneScape, what you see in the index weights there below it is, again, a lot of this won't be surprising, there are the kind of production skill supplies, so the things that are the output of gathering skills. And then the biggies are weapons. So weapons and armour, but mostly weapons.
So the brighter it is, you can pretty much say the more active it is in the economy.
The brighter it is, the more weight there is to it, the more influence it has on the economy. So there's a slight difference here because we're looking at the Grand Exchange. So there are the really, really high value items like party hats. It's pretty rare that they're traded on the Grand Exchange.
But they wouldn't influence an index like this anyway because they're not your core.
No,
core
and even like the total value that you can sink into those items isn't enough to make that difference overall. Obviously, that's not going to be how it'll work for some sub-communities within the game, for whom party hats are their version of the currency.
Yeah.
But again, this is one of the benefits of having all this data is you get a sense for how many people that affects, what the kind of impact is overall. So actually, I mean, one of the things that is always a perennial concern concern for players is inflation. So what you look at there with this blue line at the very top is actually we've been in a period of deflation, which kind of started in 2013, and actually over the last kind of couple of years, we've been really stable.
Yeah. Because there was a lot of people, particularly with mining and smithing, who were fearful of exacerbating some form of inflation, which isn't...
Even asking someone to look at that and point out invention without a date line on it, you know, you'd expect invention to have had a massive impact on the economy, and it had some impact on the economy, but not significant.
Yeah. No, and it's important to say. This is why it ends up being a complex beast, because there are a million different views you can take of it, and it doesn't mean just looking at that and saying, okay, well, no problem, then that's fine. That wouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
But it's a really useful kind of top level view. One of the things that's really interesting in that is just how important two-handed weapons were, for instance. So yeah, when people say panic sell wands, or when people, those kind of statements, you get a feel for what that really means. What does that mean for RuneScape's economy?
So Connor, you said like it's like the best thing to have. Like, are you able to summarise in like what you do, why this?
The idea is, like Joel was saying, you have your top level, and that's what that is. It's a top level look at the economy. Now that doesn't mean that every now and again you might have a particular item that's being impacted by a certain change we've made in the game, but that will be the effect is localised on that one item. If we see that graph have a significant change, then we know there's something that we need to chase down and go after. Because that means that the global price of objects is changing, either inflating or deflating. And that can be an injection of gold coming from such a broad source that it's going to cause a massive change for prices on the GE.
So when Invention came out in January, what were you expecting to see with that?
You'd expect to see... so the first thing that happens is everybody jumps onto the GE, buys up every single object they can get to disassemble in order to race to 99, which we saw.
Yep.
With all those things being consumed, the next thing you'd expect, which you'd see on this graph, is the resources used for production. Like Joel was saying, you have to have those resources to build up the objects, to disassemble them, to get them into invention. So the first thing you'd see is a spike in the cost of all of the goods, which we saw, and it was hilarious. And then you should see a subsequent spike on production if it's actually a major problem. What we didn't see is that push going into the production skills. So overall, the economy was able to
Do you think that was a result, though? Because obviously, in case people weren't aware, a couple of days after Invention launch, we kind of did a major change to it. We kind of shifted the balance a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you think we were able to, because of that, it kind of made it that way?
I think that's a separate. So there were individual items, there were XP rates, there were concerns around that.
Of course.
And that falls into the first point of the individual items don't affect that graph.
Okay.
So they will be individual issues.
Gotcha. I think we have a second graph as well that we can bring up, which is now red and blues, Joel, which is all I can say.
Change from red and green.
So if you're able to,
do you want to illuminate us as to why?
So because I spend most of my day dealing with the data guys, and they used to do all of their heat maps in a red and green, and I'm red-green colorblind, I had to ask them all to do everything in red and blue so I can see the change.
It's a better colour.
So this is the heat map.
Also, yes, it's literally a heat map now because blue is cold and red is hot.
Okay, so just to clarify, so what is this? Is this what the last image was, or is this a little bit different? Just to clarify for people here.
So this one is looking, if I'm right, at Sorry, have we gone back to?
No, this is the second one.
So this is the red showing. Red is pushing price up, and then blue is the offset weight. So this is the weightings on the per items over time, at the point when it was looking at the.
Yeah, so you get more localized effects when particular updates come out. So you get like double XP, for instance. Mm-hmm. Probably again going to be quite difficult to talk about it in detail because it's quite a fussy chart, and you have to really get into it to see. Some of those vertical lines, for instance, are double XP weekends. So what you'll see from the very left, you see these kind of clusters of red. So this is people. This will be post double XP announcement when people buy up loads of supplies for kind of a few weeks before, and then you get the impact kind of afterwards when suddenly there's a massive deluge of blue as people sell things off. Other areas go red as players move out. You know, I bought too many herbs. I've got loads of excess potions, that kind of thing. It's an interesting thing to look at the impact on an update basis. Double XP weekend is the easiest example to give because there are such massive kind of buying and storing, and then this sudden deluge over kind of a few days.
But out of everything we do, Double XP Weekend is the only thing that seems to have a broad-reaching enough impact to cover most of the lines in this graph.
Yeah. I mean, it's far and away.
I mean, I'm going to play okay, do you think that's because, though, players expect the Double XP Weekend to be every September, for example? Or...
Well, and it's a huge RuneScape tradition, and it works regardless of skill. So, if a few weeks in advance, if you're going to train some summoning or you've got some summoning materials, I've done that. Why would I waste my Crimson Charms now? I'll kind of wait for Double XP Weekend. Summoning is the king for that, and you'll have probably seen Mod Porky's stats around the XP game, around Double XP Weekends. No surprise, summoning is way up there.
All right, so we'll cut away and go to a couple more random questions. What proportion of players are using NXT?
So we tipped over 50%. It's 59% now. So I think that's really good for what is essentially a software update. I mean, one of the things that we know, given the spec of machines that players have, I mean, it was essential for NXT to be able to work on low-end computers, and that was thoroughly tested and works really well. I think everyone's really happy with that. But there's a second kind of corollary to that, which isn't just can NXT be played on those computers, but for some of the players who have very old computers, they're just less inclined to change things. So I think we knew from the start there'd be a lot of players who'd be quite happy ticking along. I'd love them to try NXT out because they don't know what they're missing. It's awesome. I mean, Shawnee, I know on your stream you see a lot of...
I love trying to use the NXT client. I'm going to use this as a chance to mention as well with today's game update that we released an audio fix for NXT, which will hopefully fix a lot of issues regarding that the players have been having. Probably maybe a reason why they went to Java, and hopefully they'll come back to NXT because of it. And obviously, of course, a couple of crash fixes, but those guys are always on it and trying to, get it, do all the magic. But hopefully the audio fix, it's been much better for me because I've had it myself until it was fixed. It's been a lot better, and hopefully it has been for everyone else. This is a very random question, but how many kebabs are there in game?
So there are 14 million kebabs in game.
14 million kebabs.
I don't know if we know who asked the question. Maybe we should check how many kebabs.
So I wouldn't be surprised if someone called Kebab Seller. I've seen him in my FC a few times. I must admit.
We'll have to check
no joke.
how many kebabs
no joke.
Seller has.
But either way, it's just a...
he sells them. Might get... Oh, anyway.
Well, you
depends how much stock he has. Yeah, it's supply and demand.
Sell kebabs.
What's the average playtime of an account?
Okay, so your average active member, as in the average player who's active right now, has played RuneScape for over 4,300 hours. It's a lot of hours.
It's a couple.
Yeah.
A couple of games.
I mean, and I think I said earlier, over half our players have played for over 8 years, so half the lifetime of the game. So that's an impressive testament to the longevity
Half
of
of our
game.
players have played for over half of our game's lifespan, did you say? Wow.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay. How much gold is traded on the Grand Exchange each day?
So latest data, over 2 trillion coins per day through the GE. So, yeah, a lot.
Is there a transaction? Is there any amount of transactions?
So it's about 1.2 million. 1.2 million transactions a day. So.
Wow. So obviously it's a fair bit of spend from some people in that
Too many
sense.
zeros to do mental maths.
It means it averages about 1 million each.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah.
Oh my
Goodness.
Okay.
So there are a lot of big transactions.
So I just mentioned obviously the audio fixes for NXT, but just a more generalised question on the audio itself. What proportion of our players listen to in-game audio?
So it's about 40%. I mean, obviously there are different aspects of audio that people can choose to be in and out of. Music is the one, unsurprisingly, that gets turned on and off the most because players turn it on and then will maybe kind of duck out while they listen to their own music. But what's interesting is the historically, I think, was a perception that audio was very different to graphics. But actually, we know from the kind of tinkering that players do with their audio and the tinkering that they do with their graphics settings that the level of kind of interest in having audio on is actually pretty similar to the amount of people who tinker with their settings to go for max settings. So I think it speaks to the importance of audio. I mean, audio in RuneScape is awesome.
Absolutely. So now we're going to come up to some images on stats-related stuff for bosses, which I know you guys have been wanting to see for a very long time. I think the last one we made was in September.
I don't know if we've enough time.
Oh, you would. But First of all, we have the boss pet unlocks. Now, this data is accurate as of 17th of August 2016. This is the list of boss pet unlocks at the top. Megaduck with 19,000. And then right at the bottom is Telos. Obviously, unsurprising because Telos has just come out, of course. But, of course, Vitalis near there as well because it has a very high drop rate. High drop rate. So, I mean, it's pretty awesome to see. And personally, I love seeing all the people who go on the duck hunts, and clearly it's showing off there. What? What? Wow. Okay. And on that note, we'll go over.
Ducks.
So Connor hates ducks. That's been established now. We'll move on to our next one, which is the top boss killers. Now, you guys wanted to see this in September. That's when the last one was updated. Here is the one for August. And here we go. There's your top boss killers. One of them I want to pick out for some reason has 23,000 kills on Nex, called Nex is my GF. I think that's absolutely awesome. You can see the names there, and there might be some familiar ones there for sure, but I just had to point that one out because, clearly they're dedicated to the cause. Party hats. Now, this is going to get very interesting.
That's already come up in the chat quite a bit.
Yeah, it has a bit.
Particularly with inflation.
How many are traded each day?
These ones they're player to player. So we know that the GE is not the place to trade a party hat. On average, every day there are 77. That's 77 trades. I suspect there'll be a few of those that are the same player trading several times. But
okay.
Yeah, 77.
What are the most popular player-owned house locations?
Probably got a graphic
We
for this.
do have an image for this, I believe.
It's got to be Remy.
It's not. Sadly. Easier for running.
And it's also the first one you'll turn on. So anybody who's going to do anything with construction will turn on Taverly.
Oh, I accept it.
Yeah, so I mean, pretty much see it there, and obviously poor Hot. I don't know how you say it.
Prifddinas up into second place already these days. So
yeah.
And I want a cut that takes anybody who's sub 10
Poor
to 20 construction out.
So this is going to be for lore-related people and people who love to follow their gods. Models, you might like this next question.
Okay.
How? Oh, you're paying attention. Are you actually paying attention?
I woke up asleep.
Got this.
How many players are in each god faction? We have an image to go with
is this
this
the
as well.
emissaries?
No, this is just this is who's in what, and we can bring that up now. There you go. That's the representation.
So the most recent in all the different options where players have had an opportunity to choose a god.
Yep.
What have they chosen?
Well, is there
Zara
anything
still?
to stand out for you there, Modelsbone?
Considering we've just created a whole year about him, Sliskate's surprisingly low.
Yeah,
Poor
well,
Sliskate.
see, I won't go on his side.
I know. He's meant to be a kind of antagonist, but I thought maybe...
I thought Zaros had a real reputation for being a fedora-wearing hipster, you're so trendy if you like Zaros. Whereas actually, he is the most popular one to
Are you saying if I like going to cereal restaurants?
Zaros is mainstream.
I don't think I will ever get tired of hearing people try and differentiate what they think Zaros is and everything else.
Actually, yeah. So this is one I did. I had a look on Reddit, and it was quite interesting seeing the discussion. I think there was a thread. I don't actually know if it was related to this your request for this stream, but there was certainly someone created a thread talking about what do you think when you know that someone supports a god. And that was,
I can imagine it was a very vocal discussion in that sense.
It was interesting.
So, Dungeoneering question here. What proportion of players have reached floor 60?
7.6% of active members have reached floor 60.
What's the total amount of XP and levels in RuneScape? I imagine the number's going to be insane here.
Yeah, I mean, the total is 18 billion levels. So between
our players.
Yeah. So, a lot of fireworks. That works out as over 200 trillion XP.
200 trillion XP. Wow. Okay, so we're coming up to quests, which we have some quest-related stats, which you're good now. So, obviously, what were the first quests created in the game? I think we have the list of first 6.
Yeah, so there were 6 quests that were released with RuneScape Classics launch. Shield Rav, Sheep Shearer, Romeo and Juliet, The Restless Ghost, Demon Slayer and Cook's Assistant. So certainly you get, if you talk about kind of most completed quest, Cook's Assistant gets a bit of a head start by virtue of being out from the very beginning. But yeah, those were the first 6. I think we've got a graphic talking about the longest and the shortest.
Yeah, this is really cool. So we have a graphic here which shows year by year the quests playtime and the number of quests we've released per year. Yeah,
gotcha.
So we have that coming up in just a moment, I believe, and there you go. So as you can see, obviously, on those one, obviously, I imagine you can chime in at any time here, but something to keep in mind is that obviously 2005 had 29 quest releases, and then of course 2008 was 17.
29 quests in a given year. That's
quite insane.
That's a lot. They were certainly putting them out there, weren't they? But it just shows, like, I think a lot of people have pointed out that there are fewer quests in recent years. But while we've also said that we've often said, but the quality's improved, you can also look, and actually the playtime of individual quests has gone up. You're looking at kind of 2 hours per quest.
Yeah, so the blue line there at the bottom is the number of quests launched in a given year.
You're looking for the green and orange, basically. And what it does show is that, obviously, as we've gone to less quests per year, the quality's gone up, but the play time has gone up as a result.
Well. Yeah, so that's it. And we're not talking artificial lengthening. A lot of that is like good, strong quest content.
So the green line at the top there is the play time from all quests combined. So looking at the average time. So if you took everyone playing every quest, although the number of quests is reduced, actually the total amount of time spent playing quests is the same as it's ever been, really. It's within the same range.
These quests are all very different as well. Like, there isn't just your go to X, Y, and Z. Like, there's many different things you do.
Yeah, I love some of the classics, but I think it's fair to say production values and quality of storytelling is.
That is one of the things. So as you bring out things like the transport or the teleportation stuff and faster ways to get around the world, it means that any fetch quest comes down massively. 2005, any of the 29 quests we released, if you put two objects in a fetch quest that were on opposite sides of the world, you were going to be spending a long time walking.
Yeah.
Yeah, so speaking of which, so the longest quest, Recipe for Disaster, 230 minutes.
Is this an average time?
This is the average completion time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that include people who've taken a break from it? Like paused it for a bit?
No, this is just looking at straight through.
Yeah.
So it's the fairest way, I suppose.
So Recipe for Disaster number 1?
Yeah, so after that you've got Wild Gothic Sleeps, so much closer to the top of my list of favourite quests there. 157 minutes, worth every one. Third place, Do No Evil, 143 minutes.
Oh, it's people doing the ice cream. Oh, that ice cream.
So the
Can you just say the shortest? I mean,
people who know play the quest know what I'm talking about.
We specify time, but I mean, we can just say the shortest as well, just for fascination.
I mean, so again, so when I say average, what we're looking at is the most common. So ignoring any outliers, effectively. So the shortest is Imp Catcher. Anyone who knows the quest will know why. The value is 0 minutes.
So you kind of mentioned the Cook's system was like the start in regards to completions and stuff. I mean, what is the most completed quest, and what is the highest completed rate for a quest?
Cook's Assistant is the highest in terms of volume, so 18.2 million completions in total. But Cabin Fever, interestingly, has a 99.5% completion rate, as in of the people who start it.
We talked about this in the previous live stream, wasn't it?
Yeah, why is that?
So Cabin Fever all takes place, well, pretty much all takes place on one singular location that you don't really move from. You actually have to put more effort to leave the ship than complete the quest, I think. So I'm guessing that's why. We need to do more boat-related quests.
Right.
This one is going to be in a tank. Yeah. Or something.
So obviously we just asked what's
How
the
many
most...
people stopped playing the game to just not have to finish the quest?
Deliberately. Yeah, just to spite me. I'm now going to see a Cabin Fever drop.
So, we just mentioned the most completed quest, but what's the least completed quest out of all of them?
I'll have to check. Recipe for Disaster. So longest play time.
People are still midway.
Most things going on.
It's because it's also requirements are so spread. So people are starting early while they have the earlier requirements, and then they haven't got it for AWOGA or something like that.
So I think it took me 2 years to go from starting playing to completing all the quests. And I think it was obviously one of the first quests I started. It was probably in the last 6 that I finished.
So it's a 6-year-long quest.
No, 2 years. You said 2 years.
Oh, did you say 2?
You said 2 years.
This is why I've been brought on the sofa. My math skills and quality of numbers.
We're trying to make you better.
Quality of numbers.
Quality of numbers.
All right. How many quests are completed each day?
First half of this year, an average of 30,000 each day. So that's 5.5 million quest completions this year.
Wow. And the amount of time spent questing per player?
Yeah, this is quite a good one. So this is another one of Porky's favourites, I think. So our active members have spent an average of 56 hours questing during the life of their account. So you think, AAA game release, that's it's more than the length of a game.
That's cool. I mean, I want to now have a feature of this live stream every week called Porky's Favourites.
Right? No, yeah, it has
you're
to
on
be.
board, I can tell.
I'm data, man. I'm on board for data all the way. What's the average number of quest points or quests completed per player?
It's 103 quests, which I think is about 185 quest points.
Obviously, depending on which quest it can be,
Yeah.
etc. And the number of people who have completed all quests.
17,685.
Completed every single quest, wow.
Yep.
And, I mean, how many hours? So you've just mentioned the average play time, I think, was 56 hours.
Yeah.
How many hours of questing content are there in RuneScape?
So again, if you look at the most common time it would take anyone to complete the quest, add those all up. If you were to complete all quests, it's about 135 hours in total. So yeah, there's a lot of questing out there.
And more to come.
Yeah, and I mean, I really do, we have to do that. I mean, I can't make that call, but the whole Porky's Favourites thing, it has
I think we can do it.
having a data, sort of data thing at the end of the stream.
The price that he pays for not coming on stream.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's it. Yeah, that's the thing now. I mean,
volunteer them for a week.
Every week.
I mean, who knows? It might be a thing, but I think it'd be really cool. So genuinely, I love these kind of things because you can see where you guys have been. Because obviously I joined only this year, but seeing the difference in quest releases in 2005 compared to this year, but yet seeing the playtime go up due to the quality of it and stuff like that. I think it's really cool. But I'm all for these kind of streams.
That's it. We get little emails occasionally from you guys, and it's like a little gift. So I wonder what crazy spirograph you're going to get next.
So we opened with pie charts and we're closing with spirograph.
We should have had what was that one with the circle with the relationships between different groups?
Sometimes they look like magic eyes. You're just looking to see if you can see a sailboat.
I can't
It's that
remember
kind
what
of
it's
thing.
called. Anyway.
But I mean, we'll keep the stream going for about a minute or so in case anyone has any questions that we can throw in that we can try and answer. But I mean, there's kind of been a fair bit that we've gone through. I think that's safe to say. And of course, this isn't that's it. There won't be another one. Who knows when the next one of these will be? But we'll come.
Let us know what
prepared.
you thought, and we'll do more.
The feedback for this. We'd really appreciate big time because I think it's safe to say. These kind of streams, they're really good fun to do, but they do take time to gather. I can imagine, I mean, from your perspective, Joel, and obviously your team, trying to gather all this, it's quite a job in its own right, and will take some time.
And we have been quite sensitive about releasing this kind of information in the past, but I think we're a bit more...
I think it's a good thing that I think we're a lot more open about it.
Yeah.
It's what the players are doing in the game that they love. Why not let them know?
Data for amount of party hats in game.
I'm not
don't
sure
know if we should say
I'm
that.
not even going to release that one.
I don't think we should.
Okay.
Economy. We talked about economy.
One of the interesting things with the economy is what factors are necessary to be able to manipulate it. And there are plenty of players who, I say plenty, I mean 0.1% of players who are able to manipulate certain corners of certain markets. But I think part of the fun of doing that is that they put an incredible amount of thought and attention and effort into being able to figure out what they're doing without that information. And personally, I know a lot of players, I'm sure, would want to know, but personally for me, it spoils it to remove that air of mystery.
I will admit, there is something I do wish we had on here that we'd missed, which was clue data, like clue scrolls and stuff like that. Maybe we can try and do a follow-up post or something like that to try and come up with that. But I mean, we'll try and get to that when we can. But I think, ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for this stream. I mean, it's been numbers, graphs, colours.
It has definitely been numbers.
It's been a lot of stuff. But in regards to the streaming schedule, I'll be back on Friday showing off some stuff for Mindvention coming up, which is going to be good fun.
I told nobody to say that outside of the...
we covered it in the Q&A last week.
No, the word mindvention.
Fishvention?
Yeah, I know.
What's the word?
It doesn't have one. It's my own problem.
I'll be going through the changes to that and what you can expect, which is going to be pretty awesome. Of course, with today's update, we had the Cafe and White Wolf Mountain reworks, so do check that out in-game as well. And there have been other little fixes as well, so you can check out the patch notes for that. And apart from that, I think that will do it for this stream. And it's been an absolute pleasure hosting this with 3 wonderful people, and it has been my honour to just sit here and revel in the glory, I think it's safe to say. It's been a wonderful time. Have a wonderful day. Take care, and have a good one.